Aaron, I just wanted to give you a quick rundown of your new pasta machine, your P2 DVE. So I'm going to go over the electrical, what all the switches mean, over the extruder, the ravioli, the gnocchi, and the cutter for you guys. Okay? As always, if you have any questions, just give us a call. Thank you. This right here, down below on the bottom of the machine, is the main on and off switch. This brings power in and cuts power out to everything on the machine. Before you start production, you got to turn this one on to get everything going. So here's a quick rundown of your main electrical box you have up on the machine. The most important thing is going to be this emergency switch. In case of an emergency or you need to stop the machine quickly, just tap on it really quick. It'll stay in place. To reset it, rotate it clockwise, it'll pop back up. If you see the yellow, that means the switch is reset. The green light here means you're getting power past the fuse. So if you don't see a green light, it means you blew a fuse somewhere in the circuit down below. The selector left and right switch, or forward reverse, is to control the rear mixer and which direction it spins in. To the left is for mixing. To the right is extruding. Really, really important when working with this machine. You never want to extrude dry flour. So if you're mixing dry flour, that's section, extruding over to that side. This is just the on and off switch for the rear mixer extruder. So whether you're in mixing or extruding mode, this will work in both ways. Now these two switches here, this one is for on and off of the cutting motor for the rear extruder. This is for the fan for the rear extruder. So these two only work when the selection is set to extrude. These will become active. This right here is your on and off for your front mixer. This is your on and off for your automatic laminator down below. So this is just to mix, this is to laminate, and for the conveyor belt. This button set here also is the on and off for the multi-pasta, the gnocchi group, and the cutting cassette. Okay, so we'll start by assembling the rear extruder and mixer. The first thing you want to do is going to grab your auger that's going to go through the hole in the mixing tunnel. This piece right here, the auger, which we call the drive end, you always want to make sure this part stays clean. These little edges tend to build up with dough and flour. If they don't stay clean, this interface isn't going to be nice and tight, and what will happen, so eventually someday the dough will pack up and this drive is going to skip on the motor, maybe causing some damage right here. So make sure this part's always clean. Also inside the machine, make sure the female part that this fits into is also clean. So you take your auger all the way to the back, make sure it fits in all the way. Really important key is to see how far the auger sticks out from the end of the extruder tunnel. So the distance between these two, you want to keep it consistent. If you ever change your die and you want to, let's say, change your die midway through your your extruding process to make a different shape, it's possible to take the die ring off with the die, but make sure the extruder auger doesn't come out with it. You can always check, kind of line things up just like this. You know, there's a nice point of reference here. It's about 10 millimeters or so. If you notice that, you take your die off and it's sticking out about an inch or so, like that. Pasta dough got stuck behind the auger and it's going to cause some problems. You have to basically clean the machine out at that point, take your auger, make sure it goes all the way in, start over. So make sure you kind of get a frame of reference between these 2 points right here. Next thing you're going to do is take a die and take your die ring, just like this. You guys are already familiar with that shape, with how this works. I'm going to thread it on, just like that, okay? And when it goes on, you don't want to use the tool to tighten it down. You only want to use the tool to remove it. So now that you got that all set up, we're going to install the hanger bracket for the fan. The hanger bracket mounted these two tools right there. That's pretty much it. The fan gets installed onto this bracket right here with these two holes that are welded in place for it. So it's a little tricky. Just line the holes up, kind of wiggle it back a little bit. You'll be good to go. You run this cable down the side and plug it into the back of the machine. Okay, so on the lower back portion of the P2, you'll find two white plugs. This is for the fan on the left and for the multi-pasta on the right. So what you'll do, you grab your plug, the 4-pin for the fan, plug it in right there, lock it in place, you'll be good to go. The other one should be used when you're using the multi-pasta. In this shot, you can see the auger is firmly located all the way towards the back of the mixing hopper. It's really key that there's no gap right there. The drive above it's for the mixing paddle. To install the mixing paddle, just drop it in, just like so. Make sure it fits all the way towards the back. With the mixing paddle installed firmly in the back of the machine, you want to grab the mixing paddle knob, this piece right here, push it in all the way, and this is just a set screw that tightens down on this knob right here. So use this little handle, you tighten it up and over, down, just till it's snug, and get it out of the way. It doesn't really matter what position this is in. It could be here, it could be there, but it just rotates up to whatever position you want to then use it as a tool. So if you wanted to remove this, you'd bring it over this way, counterclockwise, lift it up, over, and then down a little more, and then this will come out. So always make sure this is snug and that this is in all the way. One last thing to note is the safety latch for the rear mixer. You're going to bring it up, lock it in place. That way you don't prevent any accidents. The gate doesn't pop up when you're mixing if there's too much product in there. And that means the machine will keep running without stopping on its own. Okay, the last part of setting up your extruder is going to be the automatic cutting motor. This is a little new for you guys since you didn't have one on your previous machine. You've got these knives here, these blades. So you got a single and double. The single is the most common. It's got a round hole in the bottom of it with a set screw. The set screw lines up with the flat drive on the motor. So on the motor shaft here, got a flat drive. Fits on just like that, and it's spring mounted. So it's designed to stay spring mounted that way. Don't lock it in place. You need a little pressure on the die. What you do is you grab it together like this so the blade doesn't fall off. Loosen this guy so it fits onto the die ring. Mount it like so, and once it reaches the die, just put a little bit of pressure and then tighten this down. This knob doesn't need to line up with any of the holes in the die ring. You just need a little bit of pressure, and you want to make sure that the blade's got a little bit of preload with the spring. You don't want to jam this all the way on, just a little bit, just to kind of have some force there. You grab your plug. It's a 3-pin, kind of like a microphone plug. And the plug's in right here on the side flange of the P2. And you've got your little cutting motor adjusting here. So this guy, you can adjust the speed of the cutting blade as it's coming around. Okay, so in this shot, I'm going to turn the machine on, switch the top selector button to the right for extrude, start the extruder. I'm going to start the fan. That's the lower toggle switch. And the upper toggle switch, I'll turn on the cutting motor for the extruder. And adjust the speed with the little knob right here. Make it run slow. Make it run fast. It's pretty sensitive. Now the die I have on there right now is spaghetti die, so it's not necessary to use the cutting blade for spaghetti, but your short shapes will definitely need it. Okay, so for the rest of the P2, the first thing we'll want to install is a conveyor belt. This conveyor belt catches the tagliatelle, also catches the ravioli when it's coming off of the multipasta. This right here is the drive for the conveyor belt. It's really important that this drive stay clean. Nothing builds up on the edges there. Typically there's not a lot of flour involved in this area, so it does stay clean. This is the adapter piece for the drive. This adapter lets you use the conveyor belt with the multipasta, as this machine can also be configured for standalone accessories that don't require the adapter. So what we'll do is mount the conveyor belt down below like this and bring it all the way towards us. Take the adapter piece, fit it on the end, make sure it's snug, and then we have to go ahead and line up the drive on the conveyor belt, kind of wiggle it back and forth till everything lines up. At that point, we grab our conveyor belt bolt. And this bolt basically locates the conveyor belt, centralizes it with the drive. It stays nice and tight. Just hand snug is typically enough. If you ever notice that this loosens up, you can use like I believe it's a 10mm Allen key to tighten it up. Here's just another quick shot of the adapter piece. You've got the drive, the adapter, and then the drive for the conveyor belt. They should all be lined up perfectly, and they should fit really nice and snug. If you ever notice that there's a little bit of damage on it or because it skipped, all it really requires is like a little bit of filing to get it lined up again. Over here we have a shot of the bolt that holds the conveyor belt in place. There's a little nose on the bolt that goes straight into one of the holes on the side of the mounting plate. So everything should line up nice and tight. Just like I said, hand snug, should be good to go. To make sure the conveyor belt works, what you're going to do now is turn on the sheeting group, because the motor that runs the sheeter also runs the conveyor belt. Just like that. So that's that lower button. Both the conveyor belts for the sheeting group and for the multi-pasta group are now working. One last accessory to install on the P2 is the support rod system. We got 1, 2, 3 rods installed right now. Here's the 4th. They just simply thread into the side of the machine. There you go. So now the bracket for the racks will be able to hang on the machine and not move around. Once you got your support rods installed, there's a bracket that we include with the machine to help you hold the drying trays. It can be set up a couple different ways. One way is like that. And you could put one of your trays right here, like so. If that's too high for you, you can also do that and run it this way. You can also just run this here and grab pasta, stick it on the tray there. Or some people don't want to use this at all, and they'll just put it right there and catch pasta that way. It's kind of freestyle. You find the way you like the best. It's just, you know, you don't have to use the accessories if you don't want to, but they're there for your use if you do. Okay, so the P2, we'll go over the sheeting unit for it right now. The controls are, again, on and off for the sheeter, and that'll activate the conveyor belt and also the conveyor belt on the side here. But for right now, when you're making your dough in here and it's time to laminate, you'll open this little knob here and open this gate. This gate's now going to let the dough that you've mixed in here drop down into the sheeting group, which are your rollers. From there, the pasta is going to become a nice thick sheet of pasta, about 2-3 millimeters thick or so, and it's going to come onto this conveyor belt. This conveyor belt is going to work in conjunction with this button, so this will activate this and this at the same time. Your roll here is what you'll use to roll up your pasta dough. This will go on the side of the machine with the multi-pasta. So you see there's a cutout here and not on this one. So this side gets this side right here. Just place it like that, pop it down. When your pasta comes out, you're going to stop the machine, roll it over just again and get it started. Start the machine again, and this will slowly build up. And then you'll get to a point where you need to stop it, cut it, and then you take your dough off, and then you wrap it around with plastic, and then you take that and store it aside. Do one more, and you can start making ravioli in the multi-unit. To access the sheeting unit on a P2, you loosen these little knobs here and rotate these blocks upward. So you loosen this just a bit, rotate it up, loosen it, rotate it up. And be careful because this will pop down. When it opens up, you've got your former, or your paddle, your former, and then your last roller in here that makes it a smooth roll of pasta. Pasta tends to get stuck here in the edges, it dries up, it gets stuck on the Teflon here, and the side panels, all in between, so always make sure to completely clean the machine when you're done with production. There is a little micro switch right in here, and this little knob here, the screw basically activates it. So this is one area where you always want to look. If there's having electrical issues, the machine won't turn on, because right now the machine will stop if this door is open. So I'll show you. With the door closed, we'll start it. Open the door, the machine cuts off on its own. There's no need to reset. It just has to make contact. So There you go. Okay? But don't make that a habit. Sometimes people will just stop the machine by doing this and not pressing the button there. Bad habit because it's not safe, okay? The same exists on the back of the machine. On the back of the machine, same door, same locks, same micro switch. They both have to be closed all the time in order for the machine to work. One thing to note on the front hopper is the gate that controls how much pasta is going through from the upper hopper into the sheeting unit. So there's a little knob with a little door. You basically pull it up and back. That roller you see right there, that's your paddle former. That's the first stage of the sheeting group. The next one is a kind of like a scored former, and then the final smooth roller. If you ever need to clean the machine out with an extra piece of dough, which is a really good tip at the end of production, save a bit of dough, make like a little sheet out of it, a little thick sheet, and what you would want to do is align the paddles that you see here in the video vertically, and that way you can have a straight shot into the next two rollers. So I'll kind of demonstrate that really quick. I'll close the gate. Now I'm going to turn the sheeter set and have those paddles stop so they're vertical. So in this photo you can see the paddles sticking straight up, and I've got a clean shot into the next roll. You kind of see the curved former in there. This is the secondary roller, and that'll let you get the pasta dough in there to pick up all the little bits and pieces you missed when you finish cleaning the machine. This right here is the drive for the multi-pasta. This will drive the entire group, including the gnocchi, the ravioli, and the tagliatelle sets. These two rods here are the supports and also the locating rods. This right here is the drive for the multi-pasta, and this is the micro safety switch. When this switch is engaged, the machine knows that something's attached to it, but it needs to be plugged in. So use the 5-pin plug on the lower back part of the machine that we discussed earlier. Okay, so this is the drive area of the multi-pasta. These two holes here line up with the two support rods that I showed you on the P2. This is the drive that lines up with the drive on the P2. And this little latch right here is a safety latch. This will come down and lock the multi-pasta onto the P2 once you have it installed all the way on. Now, to align this drive with the drive on the P2, you're going to use this tool. This tool, you have to kind of visually line it up, get it close to how it is on the P2, and then install it. So most of the time, you're going to mount the multi-pasta onto the P2 until this is really close to the drive on the P2. Install this little tool, kind of get it lined up, and then slide it into place and lock this down. Once this is down all the way flush like that, you know that you can let go of the the multi-pasta. It's not going to go anywhere. Alright, so this is the business end of the multi-pasta. This little plastic door here slides up to install any accessory you're going to use with it. One little note, there's a micro switch right here that needs to be activated in order for the machine to work. If this is released when the door is open, this will stop. There's no reset, you just have to basically close the door, makes contact, you're good to go. A couple key features on the multi-pasta are going to be your drives. These drives back here connect with any of the accessories that you install. They are responsible for turning the rest of the accessories on the machine. Those turn the ravioli molds, they turn the cutting cassettes for the tagliatelle, and I believe they also turn the gnocchi accessory, so it spins and makes the gnocchi for you. The other important feature are these two rails here. These two rails are the support system for all the accessories that slide in and out of the multi-pasta. Right here is your adjustment for your sheet thickness. This rear roller right there on the back of the machine, or if we're looking at the side of the machine, the left, this roller set is adjustable. The roller set on the front or the right is not adjustable. It's set to, I believe, 0.7 or 0.6 millimeters. This one's adjustable here. So for ravioli, this is your fixed sheet. This is your adjustable sheet. Also for tagliatelle, this roller is adjustable, so you'll mount your rolls for tagliatelle on this side of the machine, it gets calibrated down, and then it goes to the accessory. Okay, so to mount the automatic cutting cassette for tagliatelle, you basically open the door there, you take your cutting unit, line it up with the rails, and slide it on all the way. You'll take a cutting cassette, in this case a 6mm fettuccine. You got this little guide here that needs to be installed. Looks like that, so the pasta slides nicely into it. Take your cutting cassette, line it up with the rails that are on the cutting unit, slide it on, and you'll turn this knob back and forth until the drive finds its way, and it should lock into place. You close it up by bringing down the plastic gate. On this end of things, you'll take your plug and you plug it into the port on the front of the multipasta, just like that. Now you've got electricity from the multipasta into the automatic cutting unit. To begin working with the automatic cutter, you'll grab a roll of pasta dough that you got off the P2. Place it on this dowel holder right here and have your dough so it rolls up and that way, not from the bottom. This will be a lot smoother compared to the other way. You want to get it close to these calibration rollers that are adjustable through the adjuster down here. This is just a kind of guide. So play with this. It's usually about 1.2 to 1.4 or so, but you'll be the best judge of that. The last digit, the red digit at the very end, is going to be like after the decimal. So it'll be like 1.2, 1.4, that sort of thing. So it doesn't mean 12. It's kind of just a reference. But you'll get your dough here, and what you want to do, you take your sheet, instead of having it flat, cut little edges off the ends. So right here, little triangles, cut them off. So it's kind of like an arrow. So the dough is kind of an arrow. Put it against the rollers, and then turn the machine on so the multipasta functions. So it just kind of sucks the dough just past the rollers and then stop the machine. So you want your dough to get to maybe about this far, maybe a little bit more in the process, and then you stop it. Typically the best way to do that is just to open the door because it's accessible and you're working on this side. You open the door, the machine should stop, and you get the pasta dough till it gets to about there. Okay, so by now your pasta dough should be on this little tray here. This little tray clips onto the cutting cassette. They're interchangeable, so you can take the little tray. It's just a guide off of one cutting cassette onto the other. It's key so the pasta flows smoothly from the copper scraper after the roller onto the tray into the cutting cassette. So you should have your dough till about here or so, and then you just kind of want to, when the machine off obviously, use your fingers and kind of get it started into the cutters. Once you got your dough started into the cutters, you want to go ahead and close your door like that, and then turn the machine on. So you can see in this shot, when you turn the machine on, the cutters will start turning, and also the cutting motor below will start working as well. Okay, so with the machine running, the cutter will be turning, there'll be power to the automatic cutting unit just below it. And this is just like a guillotine knife that spins around. So I'm going to turn on the main mixer that powers the multipasta. Now it's activated. Generally it's between, I'd say, 3 and 5. You kind of adjust it back and forth a little bit and adjust the length in between cuts. To turn the conveyor belt on, you'll hit the bottom switch that activates the sheeting group and the conveyor belt. So now the pasta will drop out of the chute onto the belt, and you can collect it at the very end. Okay, so now we're going to go over setting up your multipasta to make ravioli. There's a couple key components we'll talk about. First is your ravioli mold. Your ravioli mold's going to come in different shapes and sizes. This one right here has got 3 square molds. You got your smooth former over here. This little knob is just a handle. And what you're going to do is open the door on your multipasta, line up these rails, slide it in. Now you'll feel a little resistance here at some point. And these little aluminum blocks may interfere with the guide rails supports on the multipasta. So if you do, just kind of wiggle it around and then it'll slide in. A different generation ravioli molds, these tubular round supports weren't here, and it was instead a long rectangular block of aluminum. And you would loosen these screws to adjust them when they were inside, and then you snug them down so then you had it perfectly aligned. If you have this type with the round tubes, not really an issue. So you slide it in, and then you have to make sure that the ravioli mold is totally lined up with the drive in the back. To do so, you typically open the door and you can put your eye on the drive, and then you rotate just like that. You rotate the molds until the drives line up. This goes in all the way. You confirm that it's lined up all the way in the back, and then you lower your door. So you got your ravioli mold in at this point. The next thing you're going to do, you're going to take your dispenser and the dozer plate for your dispenser. This dozer plate should come with your ravioli mold. If you don't get one of these with the ravioli mold, then we need to send one out to you. Maybe it was the factory forgot to pack it. It fell out of the box when it got here. A couple reasons. But see, these three match up with the three molds on the former. The dozer plate slides into the bottom of the filling dispenser, just like that. You open your door here. You carefully slide it in. Just let it drop in place. Pretty easy to do. Okay, so with your ravioli mold in place, all the way in, door closed there. You want to open this door, and you can see what you got inside. You got your molds, your calibration rollers. This one has a fixed calibration. The rear one is adjustable. I've got these feeler gauges here. I already know this one's set to 0.6 millimeters. I verified it by using the feeler gauge. I took 20 and the 40. This will be supplied with the machine, so you can always check your adjustment. Typically want to adjust the back at the same thickness. Maybe go a little bit thicker, have it at 0.7 or so. It really depends on what kind of ravioli you're going to be making. But at this point, you grab your rolls of pasta that you made on the main laminator, mount them on the machine, have them so the rolls unfold over the top, cut the edges, the corners I should say, so it kind of has a little triangular shape, and that way the rollers will pick them up a little bit easier. Now, what you're going to want to do is close this, run the machine for about half a second or so, just so the pasta gets right into the former. When they get to the former and the roller, kind of pinch them together a little bit, close the machine, and turn it on again. Now, what you're going to happen is the pasta sheets are going to come together. They're going to go through the mold, down the bottom of the multi-pasta. You want to make about maybe 6 inches of ravioli and see what they look like. If they look like they're forming nice and tight and you can kind of stretch a little bit and nothing's really ripping, you're good to go. If you're having issues with that, you might have to make another roll of pasta, make the dough a little bit stronger by mixing a little bit more in the mixer, and then get a new batch going. Because the ravioli, you want it to have a little bit of elasticity. So if you got blank raviolis coming out just fine, now you can install your dozer. One thing to avoid when you're installing your ravioli dispenser is never try this. If you try this, you try to get in the machine, what's going to happen a lot of times, this is going to touch the mold or the scrapers or the roller, and you're going to have to get this thing out because it's going to get stuck. Always keep it as vertical as possible. Avoid this at all costs. It's just going to cause trouble. If you do it gently, just like that, let it drop in place, you grab your lock, you'll be successful, okay? Once you got everything together, you're going to be able to start making ravioli. The sheets are nice, they're together in the mold, the stuffing's ready to go, and by now you have let about maybe 6 inches of sheet pass through the ravioli die. Empty raviolis is how you want to start it out. If you don't have empty raviolis that are coming out nice and tight, then you're going to have to check the die, make sure it's okay. Sometimes there's scratches that get put on the molds and they cause the raviolis not to form properly. So always make sure that the ravioli is coming out nice and empty first, and then you want to introduce your stuffing. Once you got your stuffing going, this will be your setup. You got your plunger, got your lock, and this is your stuffing adjustment here. So this little orange adjuster, again, it's just a numerical reference to how much pressure is going through the machine. Now we've got it at 4.0, or you can call it 40, but typically it's 4.0, 5.0, 6.0. You'll make your adjustments here, you know, just up and down, just like that. So this will depend on what you're putting into the machine, how big your molds are, and the general flow and consistency. So if it's a really hard, you might have to increase it, really soft, decrease it. All depends on what you're doing. You might have to also adjust your stuffing, put a little breadcrumbs in it, a little bit of Parmesan cheese just to kind of tighten it up if it's too loose, or you might have to loosen it up a bit if it's too tight. Now, as far as these two go, this is your adjuster and this is your clutch. This activates the stuffing. So with this not engaged, this isn't going to start working. So here I'll demonstrate. Right now, the ravioli molds are turning, the calibrator rolls are turning, but the stuffing's not working. So to turn it on, I pull this out, you can see that this starts to come down. If I increase it, so let's say to 80, it speeds up. If I bring it down to, let's say 20 or 2.0, it slows down. So that's the general rule with it. It'll be between around 40 to 60 or 4.0 to 6.0. This is your clutch to turn on and off the stuffing. Now, sometimes it's difficult to push it back in when the machine's off. It's just, you know, easier sometimes when it's on to control it that way. But you'll find a way that works best for you. The gnocchi attachment for the multipastas is a similar concept as the rest of the attachments for the machine. It's kind of like a cartridge. It fits in and it's interchangeable with all the other units. To install it, open your door. You're going to line up the two support rails on the multipasta. There's a drive right here that needs to match up with the drive on the inside of the multipasta. And to line it up, you just simply grab these formers for the gnocchi, move them back and forth until it lines up. So install it like so, push it in, open this hopper door. You can see in here a peek at the drive. I'm going to adjust the drive here until it lines up and goes all the way in. There should be no gap right there. Back on the outside, what you're going to do is make sure this door closes all the way. Again, to block up the micro switch that's located right here. Now that you have the former installed, you're going to want to install the flour dispenser. Remove this little knob here that's located on top of the multipasta. Just like that. You're going to grab your flour dispenser. Your flour dispenser is going to have a gear here and a little slot for a pin right there. This slot for the pin lines up with this pin here, and this gear will line up with the gear here on the multipasta. You can see it, and this is what drives the flour dispenser. And this little tab is going to line up with the hole on top. So, got to make sure that all three line up. Takes a little bit of back and forth to kind of get it where you need it. Just like that. So you can see it takes a little bit of practice to get it in. You take the knob, you install it. This locks it in place. Just like so. Now back here is the adjustment for the flour dispenser. This little screw here puts pressure on this back of this plate. When it puts pressure on the back of this plate, it closes the aperture, so flour can't go as fast through the aperture into the former. So this is a little lock screw here, and you basically tighten this. You can see it kind of moves the back of the hopper. So once you get it set to where you want it, you lock it in place with this guy right there. So the last part to install for the gnocchi attachment is going to be your dispenser and your dozer. Same thing as with the ravioli unit. You open your door here, you see your former down here. This is where the flour will come out of. The slide for the flour should aim the flour so it goes onto the former as the molds are turning. we're going to grab our dispenser. This is full of the potato product that you've made. Your plunger goes right on top. And it looks like the ravioli one, except for the fact that it's curved and it's got 2 preset holes for the 2 formers that come around. So just like before, keep it vertical. Just be gentle, line it up. Line up this rod with the drive. Grab your lock. The 2 little rods are on top. Lock it in place and you close it. Okay? At this point, you're ready to make the gnocchi. You would run the machine. The former starts turning. You adjust your pressure with the adjustment on top. You activate the plunger with the clutch right here, and flour should start flowing through the back of the machine onto the product, and at the end, product comes out down the bottom. In concert with the pressure from the stuffing up top for the gnocchi product, you can also adjust the final product down below. This adjustment down here, located at the very bottom of the group. Here's the wide shot. There's the bottom shot. This adjuster puts pressure on a plate. The plate, in turn, you can see down here, moves back and forth, opening and closing the aperture between the former rollers and the little wall. The more you turn it in, the tighter it gets. You open it up, the more open it gets. You lock it in place with this little set screw here, and that's it. Once you have your adjustment, you pretty much don't have to move it again, but you have to probably play with it a little bit in the very beginning just to kind of get your product down.